I'm James Turk. I'm a director of the GoldMoney Foundation, and it's my pleasure to be here today with Rainer Munz, who's the head of research at Erste Bank here in Vienna, Austria. And Rainer is a specialist in demographics, and I want to talk a little bit about European demographics specifically and what the implications are for economic activity throughout Europe. Rainer, it's a pleasure to be chatting with you. Can you give me a little bit of background about European demographics and what we should be looking for?
First of all, the pleasure's on my side.
Thank you.
So we can clarify a few things because there are myths around demography and hard facts. And let's first look at the hard fact.
Good.
The hard facts is that we have a global population of 7 billion, and 500 million of them are inside the European Union. We have a little bit more than 300 million in the US, and we have something like 135 million in Japan. So that's the developed world today. And this is the oldest part of the world, so we have the highest life expectancy. This is also the part where in certain regions the population is no longer growing, but is starting to shrink. So we're talking about Central, Southeastern Europe, parts of Central Asia, in particular Siberia, but we're also talking about Japan. Mm-hmm. Now, what is the characteristics of European demographics? We have a low number of children per family, so we're talking about 1.5 children. So a family cannot have 1.5 children, but we can think of 15 children per 10 families. Then the breakdown makes sense. Yeah. Which means that the number of children in the next generation is smaller than the number of potential parents that could have children today. So our native populations on average are shrinking. We just don't see that because there is a fairly high amount of immigration from other parts of Europe and the world into the European Union, just like we have immigration into the United States, Canada, Australia, and so on. So because of high immigration, the shrinking of the domestic population is not yet felt, but it leads to a certain exchange of populations. So we see an increasing ethnic, religious, and cultural diversity in our metropolitan areas, be it London, be it Paris, be it Rome, be it Berlin or Vienna, but even in places like Istanbul. The other thing is that we have the highest life expectancy ever recorded in Western and Central Europe, and this life expectancy is still increasing. So we see an aging Europe. Now, if we compare this to the world scale, we can say the 20th century has seen a quadrupling of the world's population, from 1.5 billion in the year 1900 to just above 6 billion in the year 2000. This quadrupling of the world population within just a century has never happened before in history and will never happen again. So this was a unique feature of the 20th century. The 21st century is also unique. On the one hand, we still have a growing world population, which stands at 7 billion today in 2011, and which will reach maybe 9 billion in the year 2050. So that's just 39 years from now. But on the other hand, the 21st century will be marked by rapid aging. The number of people above age 65 is just 500 million people today, so just 500 million people. So we still have a fairly young world population on average, but this number of elderly citizens of our planet is going to triple over the next 40 years. So by mid-21st century, we will have 1.5 billion people in the age group 65 plus. And today, this aging is taking place in the more developed countries. We're talking about North America, Western Europe, Japan. But in the future, aging will even more so take place in places which still have a fairly young population today, because the young of today are the elderly of tomorrow. So aging in the 21st century will definitely also be an issue for places like China, like India, like Indonesia, like Brazil, and a few other emerging markets. And so they are confronted with a situation which comes much more rapidly and advances much more rapidly than in Europe. The UK, for example, had something like 150 years' time to adapt from a situation where 5% of the population were above age 65 to a situation where 25% of the population are above 65.
Which is where it is today, 25%?
Not yet, but by the year 2040, the UK and other parts of Europe will have a population where maybe 25% of the population, or maybe even a third, are in that area. In China, it's just a matter of 50 years.
Yeah.
In a few other countries, the period is even shorter. So in China, because of the one-child policy, we have rapid aging that is about to come. And as the Chinese have managed to bring down the average number of children in their families, not just to 1, but to 1.6 children per family, or let's say 10 families having 16 children altogether. That's something, so aging is just looming around the corner.